the video I did in honor of Pride about reality, I talked for a moment about microaggressions, and I want to get into this today because microaggressions, the way they're presented in this day and age, I just find I don't even know what word or set of words to use for that. A little absurd, to be honest. This idea, for those of you who don't know, the way microaggressions are presented is if I do something that hurts your feelings, I am completely responsible for that. And the other person whose feelings are hurt is in no way responsible for the fact that their feelings are hurt. And I want to get into this today. First of all, welcome to another video. I'm Anne Blackwood, Annie for short, your Silicon Valley sage sister, here to bring consciousness to the forefront of your daily life to make life a little kinder and simpler. So I've always had this problem with the idea of microaggressions as they're presented. I have no problem with the idea that we can do things that hurt people's feelings without us intending to, but the idea that the person whose feelings are hurt, has zero responsibility for the fact that their feelings are hurt, that goes against literally everything that I've ever taken in and seen to be true, especially when it comes to spiritual teachings around emotions, feelings, thoughts, and actions. And I am the first person to say that not everything everyone says all the time is something you want to live your life by, take into consideration. I'm going to be the first person to tell you, take what you need and leave the rest, or take none of it, really, if that's what suits you. But from all of the spiritual teachings that I have ever encountered, taken in, taught in return, we are taught that our feelings are the one thing we can control. Our feelings, our thoughts, and then our actions based on those are what we can control. So this idea that we should let people, this is very dangerous. The idea that we should only go based off of the subjective perception of the person who's been hurt and not go in any way based off of the intention or the person who committed the hurting. From that perspective, that's the opposite of everything I've ever come to understand about how we want to actually healthfully live our lives. And this is why I wanted to talk about this, because at the end of the day, someone's subjective perspective, that's going to be different. Like, for so many people. Now, as I like to remind people, we are not all snowflakes. We are not all individually so unique that there is no one else out there like you at all. Because if you really break it down, like, I want to say Jordan Peterson's personality test, for instance, breaks up into like 10, and then at a minimum of 10 things. So we all fit somewhere into like 10 categories, just along the lines of personality. So yeah, we are unique combinations of things in that sense. But what we are unique combinations of aren't unique. And there is someone out there who is the same combination as you are. I guarantee it. That's why I like to say we aren't snowflakes, we're ice cubes. But so this idea that the person whose feelings are hurt is the only thing we should take into consideration. The idea that they have zero control over their own feelings, and yet the person who hurt that other person's feelings is supposed to have total control, is supposed to be a mind reader, is supposed to know what's going to hurt somebody else's feelings, and therefore we should place all the judgment and blame on the person who was the one to hurt feelings, not place any blame or judgment on the person whose feelings were hurt. Or responsibility is even a better word for that. The fact that we're supposed to place all the responsibility on the person who was doing the hurting, whether they intended to or not, versus place any responsibility on the person whose feelings was hurt. Like, that's backwards to me. That's completely backwards to me from everything I've ever learned. And I'm not just going on what I've learned because I've learned it out of a book, have been told it. Like, I take anything I learn and then I actually put it into practice and see if it actually makes sense out in the real world. I will never teach you anything that I don't have some sort of active action that's behind it. I don't know if that put that the right way. But you know, I will have active evidence for what I'm teaching, knowing that it's worked for many people, actually applies, isn't just a teaching, but actually is actively true in practice. If anything, all of the spiritual teachings I've ever come across that actually work in practice say that we are responsible for our feelings, not somebody else. That we are responsible for our thoughts, not somebody else. That we are responsible for our perspective and our actions, not somebody else. So this idea, microaggressions, that we are supposed to place the responsibility on the person who was the one to hurt someone's feelings, not the person whose feelings was hurt, is just bass-ackwards to me. Especially under the circumstance of they didn't mean to hurt that person's feelings. Because this is what you have to keep in mind with this. They're not saying, oh, this person meant to hurt your feelings, therefore they should have the responsibility rather than you. That's not what's going on here. They're saying your feelings got hurt, and no matter what they intended, they're fully responsible for your feelings being hurt. That is bass-ackwards, my friends. We are all... The one thing we are all responsible. And the one thing we can control is what we think and therefore how we feel about things. And therefore how we act. So, microaggressions. The way it's being taught now, can't get down. I don't like the concept whatsoever. Because when it comes down to it, this idea of microaggressions, like, oh my goodness. Like, it takes all responsibility off of the person to actually deal with their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions, their wounds. That's teaching people to feed into their wounds, not deal with them. Does that sound healthy to you? Does that sound healthy to you? To teach people that you should just blame everybody else for what you feel, no matter what the situation. That doesn't sound healthy to me. That doesn't sound healthy to me at all. It sounds easy. It sounds simple. It sounds like entitlement and a lack of accountability. It does not sound right. It does not sound healthy. It certainly doesn't build happiness It builds accusation. It builds a tendency towards revenge. So, microaggressions. Microaggressions. I can't believe, like, I don't remember if it was Disney or Nickelodeon at this point or which one it was, but there was this, like, cartoon that came out with this little girl singing a song. I want to say PragerU covered it when it came out. And it talked about microaggressions. And I was just like, they're literally teaching kids this crap that people should be able to just read your mind, know exactly how you want to be treated without you saying anything about how you want to be treated, should know all the ins and outs of what's going to hurt your feelings and not hurt your feelings, and that it's totally okay to just totally be triggered by any little thing that otherwise we used to be taught not to take personally. Recognize, like, one of the examples was one of the examples was this little girl with a fro. And then this little boy who had like blonde hair went, "Oh my gosh, your hair is so cool. Can I touch it?" And that was their example of a microaggression. Like, I'm sorry, but shouldn't, you know, again, if you know it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, if you know it's inappropriate, then yeah, of course, don't do it. But shouldn't we be encouraging curiosity, conscious thought, exploration, asking questions? And now everything is being, whether they call it or not, labeled as like a microaggression, because now all of a sudden you're not allowed to be curious about things. You're not allowed to be, I mean, like kids, for instance. And why this one this thing blew me away so much was like, kids are so naturally curious. Kids so naturally explore things. Kids should be encouraged to ask questions. Now, not only that, but you should be encouraged to ask before you touch somebody. So, to me, this message of, no, you shouldn't ask them that because that's a microaggression. That's going to hurt their feelings. It's teaching kids not to be kids, and we don't need to continue to teach kids not to be kids any more than we already have. We need to like slow that roll. We need to like roll that back. Like, kids are being taught to be adults rather than kids more and more every day. And that's not good. I just heard my spiritual business entrepreneur talk about how there was a Barbie doll type thing that she saw in the kids section of a local store of hers. And she wanted to get it just to fulfill some sort of childhood hole in her with retail therapy, basically. And we don't need more people with childhood holes. And teaching kids things like microaggressions and to not be curious and to not be explorative, not to explore, to teach them not to ask questions. Nope. We need to be teaching kids to do more of that. Use their imagination more. We need to be teaching kids to ask more questions, to be more curious, not less. And of course, we want to be consciously aware of other people's feelings. We want to be consciously aware of the people around us. We want to be consciously aware of our general surroundings. That said, you can't be a mind reader in that sense. If we want boundaries upheld, we have to set the expectation of setting those boundaries first. and then upholding them ourselves, because that's how that works. I have videos on boundaries where I talk about this. If you want someone to respect, I always get, if you want someone to respect your boundaries, because nobody else upholds your boundaries but you. If you want someone else to respect your boundaries, they have to know what they are, first of all, which means you have to communicate them. And then if someone's not respecting your boundaries, then it's up to you to deal with that. Just like it's up to you how you feel, just like it's up to you what you think. And when you can master that, when you can learn to master that, the world gets a heck of a lot easier. So, just saying. Anyway, that's my take on microaggressions. I think they're freaking stupid, the way they're being portrayed these days. Sure, we can accidentally hurt people's feelings without intending to. Should all of the responsibility be placed on the party who hurt somebody else's feelings? No. Should none of the responsibility be placed on them? Of course not. But if they don't know, you can't place any responsibility on them whatsoever. If it was done completely by accident, they had no idea, they had no reason to think, you can't place responsibility on them. This is common freaking sense, my friends. Come on now, seriously. I mean, even from the perspective of, and I'll end it with this. We all take for granted how many different types of cultures there are. And when I say cultures, I mean what is acceptable, what isn't. What is normal, what isn't. Things like that. So if your household has like an open hug policy, and you're a kid and you go to school and you run up and you hug somebody because that's what you're used to, and your household and the friends groups your household participates in, everybody, even if they're a stranger and you're meeting them for the first time, you give everybody a hug. And then you as a kid go and you meet someone for the first time at school, another kid, and you give them a big hug, and that's uncomfortable for them, but that's normal in your culture, in your paradigm. It's not in theirs, so it makes them uncomfortable. We all have to take these things into consideration, that we're not going to all understand. Again, not all unique snowflakes, but we are not all going to have the same perspective on what is and isn't okay. We're not all going to have the same perspective on how to handle situations. We're going to have like one of 5 to 10 So this idea that everybody's supposed to know everybody's everything all the time is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And to expect other people to respect your boundaries when they don't even know what they are, to assume that everybody's going to know what everybody else's boundaries are, that's silly. And then to replace the responsibility on the ignorant party is even worse. And to place zero responsibility on the party whose feelings were hurt, even more ridiculous. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you for joining me for another video. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description. That includes working with me one-on-one. That includes my Patreon, where I have journal exercises, guided meditations, workshop replays, my intuitive lifestyle course, Spirituality 101 and 2.0, where we go into the A Course in Miracles student workbook. We are doing all 365 student workbook lessons between the end of my Spirituality 101 and the beginning of my Spirituality 2.0. We've gotten into about 19 of them, so we got a bunch more to go. It's been so fun teaching those. Running people through the exercises, 365 exercises. I have dōTERRA. I have the link to PeerPods, which I introduced in the last video. PeerPods is a 3-person healing team, group healing model where you heal your childhood trauma and programming. They have a masterclass coming up. The link for that is in the description as well. It's amazing. I am so grateful to be a part of the PeerPods community. Other links in the description as well. Check them all out. If you're enjoying my videos here, I know you'll enjoy the links in my description. And as always, may the energies you serve you well. And let's keep making our way through.